All right, investors, welcome back to Health, Wealth, and Lamborghinis. My name is Jason, and here we are essentially trying to pay for a Lamborghini using nothing but dividend income. Now, I've got a long way to go, but we are making some solid progress. Speaking of progress, we're about to close out the month of June, which will signal basically the halfway point for the year. And I want to touch on a few things. One, I want to talk about all the dividend payments that I got this month, which I think there was like 10 payments. It was actually a pretty solid month for me. Two, I want to look at the portfolio and generally see how things are going. Do I have any plans? What have I bought? What have I sold? And speaking of selling, the last thing I want to touch on is you guys may or may not have known, but in April we had quite the market sell-off. And unfortunately, a lot of my buddies were kind of running into cash. They were panic selling, but not me. I was buying. And I'm going to talk about what I bought during that dip and how it's doing. So let's just jump right in. We're starting here. We're in Snowball Analytics, which is probably the best dividend portfolio tracker that I've ever seen. This video is not sponsored, but I will put a link in the description below. If you guys have a dividend portfolio like me, and Vanguard doesn't really it's not too user intuitive. It doesn't look that pretty. You might want to consider, software like Snowball Analytics. I really do like it. So you can just jump in here. This is basically my liquid net worth, not counting any assets or something. We're almost at about 350,000. And that is actually including everything. Bitcoin, my Roth TSP at work, everything. But first, I just really want to talk about my dividend portfolio here. And you can see we're valued at about $212,000, about $22,000 in gains, not too bad. And it looks like here we are projected to make about $4,500 annually, which isn't too bad, but take a look at the growth rate, almost 10% dividend growth rate on this portfolio, which is actually just fantastic. So if I go up here to analytics, we can kind of take a look at the portfolio all together, the weighting, the makeup of everything. And I just want to go here and talk about kind of what I've got, how it's doing, halfway through this year. We did recently buy into UNH, got about 22 shares here, and have already received about $48 in dividends. So not too bad. We are in the red here by, $4. I'm not too concerned with that. This is a company that I bought into recently because I do like buying cash flow machines that have had some really bad news, and UNH is definitely falls in that category. And plus, they are in the healthcare sector, which I did not have any exposure to. So we got UNH. We got Starbucks, a little over almost 132 shares. Not too bad. We are up 16.5% on that position here. Not too bad. We've got Apple, 40 shares, up about a little over 11% here. Not too bad. NVIDIA, I got 75 shares, and we are up 31% on this position. Almost $3,000 in gains. Realty Income, I do want to add to this position, and I'm going to very soon. Almost 130 shares, sitting at a total return of almost $800. Pretty happy with that. Google, one of my losers here, but that's all right. I definitely believe in this company long term, and so I'm not too concerned about being in the red a little bit. We're just down about 1%. I got 75 shares at a total. I think my cost base here is about $179 per share. So a little bit of red there. Got the money market account, not too concerned with. Home Depot, got a 26.5 shares, up about 4.5%. Almost $415 in the profits, but we have received $154 of dividends from Home Depot. Not too bad. I like that. Next, we got Visa, got a little over 40 shares, almost 40 and a quarter, actually, with some dividend reinvesting happening, up almost 31.5%, showing about $3,400 in gains. Not too bad. Most of these positions in here, you can see these are long-term holds for me, especially these dividend compound machines. I'm not planning on selling these. All right, Kava, I got a funny backstory with Kava, but I am in the red. Almost 7%, down about 300 bucks on this position. This is not a long-term hold for me by any means, but I got some family that also owns this stock, so it's just kind of fun to, hey, have you seen how Kava's doing, with my family? Fine. All right, Waste Management, one of my core positions, 55 shares, almost 56 now with some dividends being reinvested. And, we're up about $1,500 in the green here. I cannot complain about that. Nike, 201 shares. Now, I have owned this stock, really since they started pulling back, but I'm finally back in the green here, up almost $200. But check this, I've also got $92 of dividends, and this company just will continue to pay dividends and grow them. Very happy with this. I expect Nike's turnaround will be pretty strong overall, I think. All right, Amazon. Definitely not a dividend paying company, but geez, during the recent dip, I had to buy a little bit. We can see here we are up over $1,000 on that, almost 23%. So I'll hold this for a little while. I'm not sure exactly how long. Next, we got Microsoft moving on. A little over 30 shares, not too bad. $3,100 in gains, up 26%, and they've already paid me $50 this year in dividends. Very happy with that. Again, long-term position here for me. Chevron, another long-term position, almost 92 shares here, up not too much, 4.3%, almost $600 in profits, but they have paid me $411 in dividends, which I have obviously reinvested all those, probably picked up 2.5 shares or so for free on that. I got some money in VOO, which I'm not too concerned about, but we are up over $5,000. And then recently I picked up SCHD in this account, picked up 400 shares. We are barely in the red here by $50, but SCHD will be paying a dividend here in just a few hours, basically. So that number will go green. And so now moving along, I want to go into my transactions. I just want to kind of circle back to, roughly like the end of the first quarter here and just kind of talk about what I was buying during the dip, So if we just go back to March or so, that's when things kind of started to get rocky. Okay, so you can see, let's see here. Okay, yeah, so I was buying Microsoft, I bought at 400. I bought 5 more shares at 390. I was buying Google at 168. Bought some more Kava to average down fine. Bought more Microsoft, 379. I picked up some more NVIDIA at 109, even more Microsoft, a little bit more Google here at 160. Let's see, I did buy some more Nike, more Google at 155, more Nike, more Microsoft, 2 more shares, 378, some dividends. These are all dividends. I bought some Apple during the dip, Amazon heavily during the dip, picked up 25 shares, more Google during the dip at 153, more Nike, more Microsoft, 5 more shares, 373, got up 32% on that buy, not too bad. I bought a little bit of Starbucks, and that's pretty much it. I was buying some Chevron. Here's where I bought UNH, bought more Chevron, bought more UNH, and then I've just been collecting dividends. I did pick up 1 more share of Home Depot on the recent pullback at 347. And so basically, like everyone, it was a little bit, I don't want to say like nerve-wracking, but when you watch the portfolio go down, the S&P was down about 20%, was down a lot on some of my positions. It took some fortitude to continue buying into, companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple to an extent. Starbucks I have no problem with, Nike, whatever. But, in hindsight, of course, should have bought more down there. But, I'm probably in, I don't know, $15,000, $20,000 of things I bought basically during that sell-off. And, looking back, very happy I did. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I had friends who went to cash. They basically panic sold, went to cash, right around after the tariff announcement. And, I was just like, man, just hold, keep buying if you can, and luckily I did. And those seem to have worked out. So hopefully you guys did the same thing and just kind of kept buying through that. And yeah, I'm very happy with what I was able to do there. So if we move along to the dividend payments I've received this month in June of 2025, you can see here Snowball Analytics does a great job of basically capturing everything, and they're linked up to the Vanguard. And almost $600 in dividend income right here. So starting off right at the top, we got the money market account just from my cash position, paid me $85.65. Visa paid me $23.71. Chevron here paid me $143. That was nice. Picked up over a full share at that price, so I'm very happy with that. Microsoft paid me $25. Realty Income paid me $34. Google paid me almost $16. Home Depot, almost $60. Waste Management, one of my favorites, $45. United Health, my newest position, almost $50. And SCHD is about to pay me $104. Now, what's funny about this month is it's not on here, but VYM actually paid me about 80 something dollars because I was invested in VYM, which is Vanguard's high yield dividend account. But I decided to swap that money into SCHD here in my taxable brokerage account. But what's funny is I was able to sell after the VYM ex-dividend date and buy into SCHD before their ex-dividend date. So I actually got both dividends from them this month. So actually this number is closer to maybe 650. I don't recommend like trying to time these ex-dividend date buying and selling things, but it just kind of happened. I definitely planned it, but it just kind of worked out this time, and I'm very happy. The over $600 of dividend income for the month. That's pretty good. It's probably not a Lamborghini payment yet, but maybe when this number is doubled or so, we're kind of getting there in that ballpark. And so now, like I said, as the year is about halfway over, if we just go back here and we just look at my total net worth here, which is kind of fun to see here, sitting almost $350,000. This thing kind of fluctuates in and out. And I just want to show you guys in these holdings. So you can see here my Roth TSP is valued at just under $115,000, up almost 6% year to date. And if you guys remember, it was definitely a big milestone for me towards the end of last year to reach that $100,000 mark in my Roth TSP, because this is like my main nest egg. When I'm retired, hopefully this will be a 7-figure account. And I feel better playing around with single stocks in my brokerage account because I have this. And it's not like this is an insane amount of money. It's definitely not, but having $115,000 in my Roth IRA at work, very happy with that. If we could see this get to, I don't know, 125 by the end of the year, that would be pretty fantastic. I still contribute to this pretty heavily every month. This is the only thing I like religiously dollar cost average into. So very happy there. If we go check out the Bitcoin, you can see here about $2,800 worth of Bitcoin here. I haven't been buying any Bitcoin, but I'm still holding. You can see all-time return of 75%. I was buying Bitcoin, my average cost here, $61,000. And Bitcoin now sitting at what, like 106, not too bad. I will hold this, and if I remember, I will buy this on dips. I don't follow it crazy, but I'm happy to hold Bitcoin and be a part of this kind of crypto movement. But this is a very small portion of my portfolio, as you can see. So jumping right into my Roth IRA now here, you can see we've got $21,000 here sitting basically flat overall. And for better or for worse, this currently is all in SCHD. Now, you can see here I've got about 800 shares here of SCHD, not too bad. And I think pretty soon we are going to be expecting a payment here. Let's see what my payment's going to be. Let's see, what is that? $206. So not too bad. That'll pick me up like 8 shares, almost 8 shares. And again, I'm thinking about making some moves, but with this, with my Roth IRA, but I'll touch on that in another video. But it's not performing too well. SCHD is kind of being weird this year, but they are still paying a good dividend, and I'm about to collect another 200 bucks from them. And again, this is all tax free, just sitting in the Roth IRA. So overall, again, almost $350,000. If we could get that to a half mil or so within the next, I don't know, year and a half, maybe by 2027, that would be a pretty good. I think we could easily do that, especially if things just keep rocketing up. S&P is at all-time highs, and I'm feeling pretty good about my portfolio overall. I might make some small tweaks here and there. I definitely need to focus on my dividend-paying stocks. I do have a decent amount of money tied up in stocks that don't really pay a dividend, like Nvidia, Amazon, Kava, those things. I'm contemplating, selling them while they're at a really nice profit for me, taking profits and deploying that money to build more of my dividend snowball, because I'm so invested in companies like Nvidia and stuff via the S&P 500. So it's like I'm probably overweight. Like I probably have too much of my portfolio in those companies, but we'll see. Right now it's fun to let it ride, and obviously I love watching the share price go up, but if I want any of that money, I've got to sell the stock. I can't just get my dividend payment. So that's just some stuff I'm kind of thinking about. Overall, very happy, learning a lot. I've been investing for a long time via the Navy and stuff like that. But as far as just like individual stocks and picking and doing research and listening to earnings calls and things like that, we're coming up at about 2 years or so. And I'm definitely not a pro by any means, but I'm making some progress. I'm feeling pretty good about where my portfolio is. Might make some small changes and just continue to add. And I'll keep you guys updated on all that progress. And if you guys have any suggestions or what you guys are doing with your portfolios, how are they doing mid-year? I'd be anxious to know. So anyways, that's it for this episode. I will see you guys in the next one.